to me, I'm an advocate for Google Business Profiles because one, it's free. Two,
Mhm.
you're the one in control of it, so you can upload and put in as much information as you need about your practice. And
Mhm.
three, it increases your chances when you have clients locally who are searching on Google, especially if you are able to successfully get your profile to show up within the map section on the Google search results.
This episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 304 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. And happy November. I don't know if I said that in the last one, but it's hard to believe that we're in November already, and we're starting to wind down 2023, or at least it seems like that. I know seeing all the Christmas commercials and stuff already coming on. It just, it just seems like each year goes by faster. But anyway, I'm so glad for you to hear my conversation today with Omar Ruiz. And Omar had reached out to me, and Omar is another private practice consultant. And one of the things that he is really passionate about, kind of like I am, is using the different aspects of Google. For those that have been following me a while know that I created a course called Google Workspace for Therapists, which is still available, and it goes over a lot of the basics about using Google Workspace and maybe how you can use it in your practice. But in this conversation today with Omar, we kind of do a deep dive into using your Google business listing for marketing, and just some of the ins and outs of that, and also just how to troubleshoot things like people leaving a bad review. I know that has happened to me. It's happened to a lot of other people out there. When you put up a free Google business listing, people can leave reviews. So we talk about that and the kind of the pros and cons of using a Google business. But I think you're going to find it a really interesting conversation. So also, as we move closer to the holiday season, you're probably thinking about, particularly if you have a group practice or even just people that you deal with in your business, thinking about gifts that you might want to get them. As you've heard from me before on other previous episodes, my good friend Ashley has set up an online store. It was on Etsy, but we moved off of there, and she's got her own dedicated website now, and it's just mentalhealthwaretn.com. But you can also go to practiceoftherapy.com/mentalhealthware to get to that website. And it is a website that's there to help you find custom items, things like t-shirts, sweatshirts, Christmas ornaments, hats, just about anything that you can think of that you might want to customize. She can help with that. And so be sure to check it out. And again, you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/mentalhealthware and get to that website and check out all the cool swag that she's got there. And I'll mention again, if there's something that you would like to get special or a design you've got in mind, she can help with that. And you could also just shoot me an email at gordon@practiceoftherapy.com, and I can help you get connected with her. So, we're still working on the website and get not all the the kinks out of it, but it's there for you to check out. And also, before we get to my conversation with Omar, I'd love for you to maybe go over and check out some of the things that my colleague, my assistant rather, Rachel, has put together with the Instagram templates. And you go to practiceoftherapy.com/Insta templates. You can check out that. And it is a set of templates that you can get for your Instagram posts that you can edit and change and add your logo to using Canva. And so be sure and check that out. practiceoftherapy.com/Insta templates. And again, before we get to my conversation with Omar, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft Network, along with a message from our sponsor, Therapy Notes.
Hi there, I'm Julie Harris. I'm an accountant and I'm the host of the Therapy for Your Money podcast. In the podcast, we talk about all things money and finance, specifically for therapists in private practice. You see, my accounting firm, Green Oak Accounting, specializes in working with therapists in private practice. That's all we do at this point. And over the years, we've learned so many tips and tricks for how to make the financial side of private practice work better. After all, we've seen under the hood of hundreds and hundreds of private practices. So in the podcast, I share lots of financial tools and tips and mindset shifts to help you have a profitable private practice. Therapy for Your Money is part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts, a network of independent podcasters just like me. So head over to therapyforyourmoney.com to hear episodes on topics like growing your practice, making more money without necessarily working harder, weathering the ups and downs of a practice, and so much more. Come join me at therapyforyourmoney.com.
Have you ever wished your private practice could run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine? Well, look no further because Therapy Notes is here to revolutionize your practice. Therapy Notes is the complete practice management system you've been dreaming of. With everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with clients remotely, create rich documentation, and handle insurance billing, it's your secret weapon for a smoother practice. And the best part? It's accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Yep, even on the go. Imagine having more time for what truly matters, your clients. It's like having an extra set of hands, but digital. And here's the kicker. It's the very EHR Gordon relies on in his own practice. So, you know it's the real deal. Say goodbye to paperwork nightmares and hello to more time and better quality care. Check out Therapy Notes today at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Oh, and don't forget to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. That's practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes with the promo code GORDON. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And so glad to have with me today Omar Ruiz. Welcome, Omar.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. And so I was just catching up with Omar here before we started recording. And Omar, you've been in private practice kind of on and off, I think, since 2014 and gotten into doing some coaching and really helping people handle the marketing side of things. But as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yes. So for those who are not familiar with me, my name is Omar Ruiz. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist out of Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm also now a business coach for therapists where in my private practice, I specialize in helping couples that are struggling with infidelity and communication issues. And from my business coaching side, I normally specialize in helping therapists improve their online presence so that way they can attract more clients online. Hence why I developed the brand Online Private Practice.
Yes. And so we're gonna dive into that. And so as you have kind of learned along the way, just how did you get interested in kind of the online presence thing, and just learning about marketing and all of that sort of thing?
Yep. So when I started my private practice, it was under insurance. So for those who are new or interested in building a practice, when you're, at least from my experience and speaking to other therapists, insurance practices don't really have to do much marketing. They don't really have to focus on building a solid website. All they need is maybe a good Psychology Today profile, a very basic free website, and then that's pretty much it. A lot of their referrals just come through those networks, the Psychology Today, or even people calling insurance asking for a provider, and then they're listed within their list of providers. So after about 4.5 years, I ended up closing down the practice. It was at a point where there were shifts in insurances where clients who had a specific insurance got switched to another one, and I could not keep up with the shifts in that time frame. And I had moved from one location to another, whereby I lost the majority of my clients. So at that time, I had a house. Unfortunately, I was underwater with the mortgage. I could not catch up. And because I wasn't really doing much marketing, it was very hard to get my caseload to where it needed to be. So I had to make an executive decision of closing down the practice and just applying to work full time at a school. So I worked as a middle school counselor. So I was there. The practice was from February of 2020. Oh man, I'm going back in time. February of 2014. And I closed down the practice of August of 2018. I reopened a year later, and I reopened it under a brand. So it's still a solo practice, but the brand I created was Talk, Think, Thrive. I was inspired by Talkspace and ThriveWorks, so I wanted to create like a brand for it. And this was just months. I reopened it in September 2019, and this is months before COVID. So when I reopened it, I decided, let me do private pay and not insurance. And that's when I quickly realized private pay is a completely different beast of a business model, where you really have to focus on marketing. And so I was doing a lot of the traditional ideas, passing out business cards, going to networking events, and COVID hit. And when COVID hit and the pandemic hit, everything that I was doing before just went to waste. My business cards were collecting dust because I couldn't meet with people physically. Mm-hmm. So I needed to make a shift and learn how to market online. I had no idea about anything. So I decided to do what I would call go to YouTube University. I went to YouTube and started watching a lot of videos. The issue that I had at that time was the videos that were currently out there were for private practices, were business coaches that were sharing information that I had already knew. Because I had already had a practice. So there wasn't anything new that they were sharing. And I think you, Gordon, has decided to do a special video. You collaborated with a lot of the other folks, like from folks on Practice of the Practice and Private Practice Startup. And I had seen that video. And then afterwards, I said, I need to think of my private practice as a small online business. So I took a shift and started watching videos about online marketing. And I decided to take some courses, and I learned about SEO, local SEO, which is the Google Business Profile. And after a while, within about 2 years, I was able to get my practice where it needed to be. Unfortunately, my full-time job started noticing I wasn't paying as much attention. And so they decided to discontinue my contract, because when you're working in the school, you're hired under a contract for the year. And when anybody who gets noticed that they're not going to be renewed, I went into survival mode. I had the practice as part-time, and I was applying to different jobs. I have 2 young girls that I need to take care of. And the funny thing was I would never get hired. And I would get to the final stage. I had years of experience. I had a lot of clinical skills to offer. I'm also bilingual. I speak both English and Spanish, and no one wanted to finalize the hiring. And so I figured maybe that's a sign of the universe that this is not where I need to be. I need to focus on the practice and then build it. I had 6 months, and by the end of the 6 months, I was able to get full-time in my practice. And then how I got to business coaching was I honestly never thought about being a business coach, never had the intent of doing it. I learned about Facebook groups for private practices, and I started joining them, assuming I would get new information about how to improve my practice. And I quickly learned that I had more to give than to receive. And so much so that I got suspended and kicked out of different Facebook groups because I didn't understand the culture. The culture of Facebook groups is that if someone owns a group, they're trying to promote their service or their practice building program. I assumed it was a community of people who would just want to share. So as I got kicked out, I started quickly realizing, okay, I need to take a pivot. And I would get messages from people asking me, oh, do you coach? Do you offer support? And I decided to try it out. And I got a lot of great feedback. And that's when I decided maybe this is the pivot I need to turn. Because I had my practice, I feel I still have the practice to this day. I feel great about it. However, I find myself being more passionate helping therapists, especially where I spent years trying to get a clear understanding of how to market it online. And that's why I created the idea of online private practice, because that's how I built my practice. I had to study online and figure out how to get it to where it needed to be. And so that's where I'm at today, where I have a very small growing YouTube channel where I produce videos on teaching people and showing visually what they need to do online. And it's slow growing simply because if you've ever done YouTube videos, it's a lot of work. I have to, which is why I'm potentially interested in doing podcasting for myself, because I have to create a script, I have to record it, I have to figure out the screen recordings, because what I wanted to do was do something better than what was already existing. I wanted to give people, my ending piece would be, I want to give people solid information whereby anything I share could be Google fact checked. Where if I share something with someone, if you don't believe me, just go to Google, type it up and see. Or go to YouTube and watch a video that I didn't produce that you can go by the information. And so that's where I landed now.
Yeah. So to shift a little bit, I know one of the things that you've gotten real interested in is using the Google business profile as a way to really market your practice. So what have you learned about that?
So a couple of things. To me, whenever I speak to therapists, especially when they're trying to do online marketing, I put it under 5 categories: therapy directory sites, website, a Google business profile, networking, and optional is social media. Google business profile is helpful, one, if you see people in person, and 2, it allows you to get shown within the Google search results faster than if you were to do search engine optimization for your website or SEO. SEO in general takes between 9 to 18 months for any page of your website to get shown, because it's considered a long-term marketing strategy. Google Business, however, if you set it up correctly, then you could get traction to that profile. So for the audience who doesn't know, Google Business Profile is a free business listing that's offered by Google. You literally go to Google, type up Google Business Profile, and you sign up. It's almost like compared to like a Better Business Bureau profile or Yelp profile where people can leave reviews. It's designed as a panel that if you go on a desktop and you search up your name, it should show up on the right-hand side of the screen. If you use a mobile phone and you type up your practice name or your name, it's the first thing that shows up. It includes like your picture, your name, your business information, any reviews that you have that's connected to your practice, and additional pieces. So to me, I'm an advocate for Google Business Profiles because 1, it's free. 2, you're the one in control of it. So you can upload and put in as much information as you need about your practice. And 3, it increases your chances when you have clients locally who are searching on Google, especially if you are able to successfully get your profile to show up within the map section on the Google search results.
Yeah. So what are some tips and maybe strategies around getting your Google business profile up to speed, or to how things should be worded? What are things that maybe people ought to consider when setting up their Google business profile?
Yep. I would say the first thing is when you sign up for a Google business profile, you need to complete everything. Anything and everything about your practice, you need to add it there. Second, you need to add pictures. And when you add pictures, try to avoid uploading stock photos because Google can tell the difference if it's a legitimate business versus you're just going on Unsplash or Shutterstock to get these fake photos of like couples or whoever you work with. If you're an online only practice or a telehealth practice and you're trying to think, well, I don't have an office that I can upload photos with, then my recommendation is think outside the box. Take a picture of you in front of your laptop as though you're in a telehealth session, or take a picture of yourself, or have someone record a small, what I call a business explainer video, where you explain the services you offer, similar to what people might see on Psychology Today nowadays, where they have that second video. You want to upload that. The reason being is because people are visual. So they already are bombarded with a whole bunch of text. And we now live in an age where video and pictures is what people want more days. Next is reviews, which is the biggest piece that whenever I'm engaging in Facebook groups of discussions around reviews is the most taboo subject. Google Business by itself, you look at it as both a profile and a review site or review listing. When we're thinking about clients just like us, we're consumers. So what we're doing is when we go online and we're researching something, we're researching for what is the best product or the best service. The pushback I get from folks is, well, it's against the code of ethics to ask for reviews. And so I had to do some research, and I found out that it's against the code of ethics for 3 of the main mental health providers: social workers, psychologists, and professional counselors. It is not against the code of ethics for marriage and family therapists who abide by the AMFT, nor is it against the code of ethics for the mental health counselors who abide by the AMHCA. Mm-hmm. Read into their code of ethics, it doesn't explicitly state they cannot ask for a review. Now, there are MFTs, or Marriage and Family Therapists of California, in which within their code of ethics, it does specify that they need to avoid soliciting testimonials from anyone who's vulnerable to undue influence. And I was also able to locate an article written by their legal department that clarified what that meant, which essentially means that the person themselves cannot independently make a choice for themselves, so such as like minors. So with marriage and family therapists and mental health counselors, they can ask for reviews, but there's like certain best practices about going about that. For social workers, professional counselors who abide by the ACA, and psychologists who abide by the APA, the recommendation is for them to ask colleagues, coworkers, or referring partners, because 1, they're not in treatment with them, and 2, there's no unbalancing of power that differentiates between them. So reviews are important simply because that provides what is now called social proof. Social proof validates that your service or your product is worth paying for. And so that's the biggest key, what I would push for Google Business. And normally my biggest advice is use, or what I would call perform competitive analysis. All you do is, if, say, for example, you are an anxiety specialist and you go to Google, you type up anxiety therapy near me, and you look at the map section and you press more places, say, for example, you're on desktop or mobile, you're going to look at everyone that's listed there, because everyone listed there has a Google Business profile. You're going to average out the reviews of how many reviews does everybody have and what's their score. So like if most people have 10 reviews and their average score is around 4.5, your goal is to get 11 reviews and try to get like a higher than the 4.5. Because ultimately it's still a competition. Clients are choosing who's going to be the best for them. So you want to tailor your reviews to them. So that's that part. And then the last pieces are utilizing their products section and their Google post. Products, normally therapists don't sell products. Some do. Some might sell therapeutic workbooks or journals or fidgets. But you can actually use the product section by marketing your services as products. And then the last part is Google posts. It's not, people treat it as social media posts, but they need to be treated as like mini advertisements. So what I would suggest is folks to post once a week. And within that post, you're posting something related to your service. So you're pretending it's a billboard. You have no more than 7 words on the image and then some text beneath it. And with that text, it needs to connect to a particular service page on your website. So that's, again, we're getting into the nuance of it, but to me, I find that it's helpful simply because it helps therapists attract clients locally, especially if they're using an SEO strategy that's going to take months for their websites to show up. To speed up the process to get more clients, I would say focus on a Google Business Profile and then work your way to SEO for your website.
Right, right. Yeah, as you were talking about all of that, one of the things that I think is helpful for people to think about whatever they put, like in Google Business or just anything related to SEO, is to be able to put it in a language in which people might be searching for services. Yeah. So, I mean, one simple example would be, to use the word worried rather than anxiety. I think most people today, understand what anxiety is, but that might not be, that's kind of a clinical term and to some degree. And so being able to put it in simple terms or put it, not necessarily dumb it down, but I mean, be able to put it in plain language so that when people search, they're usually searching in, more plain language rather than a lot of clinical language.
Yeah, I would say if folks are struggling with how to make it more simpler, literally go to thesaurus.com and type up whatever word you're trying to look for synonyms for. It could be worry, anxious, overwhelmed, eat up, anything that might come up that you want to add. And that's, I would say the second part with that is going back to the review section. One of the things that I found interesting while trying to understand Google Business Profiles and the power behind it is there's more power behind what the person says in the review than what we respond within the review. So if that's to say, if you're within the profession where you cannot ask clients for reviews, but you're asking coworkers or colleagues for reviews, my recommendation is ask them to put down the specific service that you want to be found for. So if I'm a couples therapist and I want them to speak on my character as a couples therapist, then what they need to write down in their review is, I have known Omar for this amount of years. He does great work with couples when he's offering marriage counseling and couples therapy. When they write that within the review, Google will start noticing it, and it's called review justifications. It's anytime you search something, and if you look at the map section and certain words are bolded within the review, it's because Google is trying to showcase to the searcher, this person actually offers the service you're looking for. And it's more of a it fixates on the person's eyes when they're seeing the screen to see something bolded, and then they're going to most likely want to click on it.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's just in thinking about that, like you said, is making sure that your wording is going to speak to a person that is searching for you searching for your services. Yeah. So, well, this might be a little bit of a detour here, Omar, but and I guess reason I'm asking this is because it's come up a few times for colleagues or whatever, where you might have a disgruntled client or patient, and so they go in to the Google Business and give you a negative review. So what are some strategies around that? Because from what I hear, Google doesn't let you take down any reviews unless it's just completely slanderous or something.
Yep. So that's a great question. So to clarify with people, there are ways to remove reviews. However, you would have to really dig into the weeds of Google's policies, whereby they will only remove a review if it goes against their content policy. So if, say, for example, there's a local pizza shop near me that actually got closed down because there was an investigation on the owner. Locals left reviews saying you shouldn't treat your workers that way, or how dare you abuse immigrants in that manner. And then what was interesting is the likelihood is that that owner was able to submit a request to Google to say, these reviews do not fit to our business. Even though Google has no idea what's been happening as to why they were getting an FBI investigation. However, those reviews were removed because it goes against their policy as far as like what people can leave. Now, if a client leaves a negative review, the first thing I tell therapists is you have to respond to that review. The concern that people have is around HIPAA. Now, as a lot of therapists are aware, with HIPAA, it's more about protecting the client's confidentiality. But from a business perspective, we can still respond in a HIPAA compliant way as long as we're not identifying that we have worked directly with them. All you would have to do is you would have to respond saying, thank you so much for your review. We strive to offer the best quality care to our patients. Since this platform is open to the public to see and read, we encourage you to please give us a call at this number so that we can address some of the concerns mentioned in your review. And then period. That's it. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that conversation offline onto a phone call to try to mitigate what the issue was. The client still has a capacity to edit that review because as with any review left on Google Business, it's directly connected to someone's Gmail account. So as long as one, you respond to both positive and negative reviews, and two, you ensure that your response is addressing the issue, but in the way that you're encouraging them to take offline is still within HIPAA compliance. I would say the issue with getting a negative review is that it almost takes about 4 to 10 reviews just to balance out your score. And that's the troublesome. So you really have to have what I would consider a online reputation management strategy on how can you improve it and be mindful. I think a lot of people strive for like a 5-star. Normally, if you ask an everyday person, people will still consider your business if it's between 4.2 to 4.8. I forgot what article I read, but there was an article that said that when they see a 4.2, 4.8, that speaks more realistic about what they can expect versus if you had 100 5-star reviews. Because people might question, like, no one's perfect, so there has to be something that's off.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's happened to me, but another colleague of mine, we were talking about this, David Hall. So shout out to Dr. David Hall. But most of the time when you get negative reviews, it's usually somebody that might not even be a client directly. And it might be that they, maybe they had trouble getting through to make an appointment, or they had trouble with something that was totally unrelated to your services. And so that, in those cases that do come up, but I agree with you. I think you do need to respond and do it in a way that lets the other people that can maybe come through see that you're responding in a kind and compassionate way, but is also protecting the person's privacy. So, I mean, I totally agree, and just invite them to, contact us directly, and we'll try to, whatever the concerns are, and be able to deal with it in that way.
Yeah. What I explain to therapists is that because you're starting and building a business, this is part of that, which is customer service. And so when people read that, they can see that you're attentive as a business, you're addressing the concern, and you're trying to offer some sort of solution. And if clients were to ever address it to you in person, whether if you are online doing telehealth or just seeing them in an office setting, there might be a time where people might share, like, I really do appreciate how you responded to them. And then that's where you can speak to, because of my values around privacy and confidentiality, we do the best that we can to address people's concerns, but we can't, unlike other businesses, address that particular client. And that happens a lot with some of the folks I've worked with, where they say the same thing. Someone called, they didn't get a hold of them, they got upset, and then they wrote a review saying they didn't answer the phone call. I tell people context matters for a consumer, because if I'm a consumer, I read, like, if I see a restaurant that I enjoy and I'm reading and most of the people are saying good things about the food, but bad things about customer service, I still might want to try that restaurant. I just may not. I'll just do a takeout and just focus on the food instead of having to have that same experience.
Right. Yeah. So good advice there. So, Omar, I need to be respectful of your time, but tell folks a little bit more about your consulting, and I know you've got some resources for people as well.
Yeah, so I'm offering every therapist the ability to have a free consultation if they required or needed it. Within that consultation, essentially, I go over what are your practice goals. If you have a Psychology Today profile, we'll take a look at it so I can give you some quick feedback about it. The services that I, as of now, offer tend to focus on two things: individual coaching, which is set for like 45 minutes. And the other is what I call a group marketing intensives. That's basically a 4-hour program where it could be between 1 to 10 people, however many people sign up. And that's where we will go through the different levels of online marketing strategies, such as therapy directories, website, Google Business, and going into the weeds of like SEO or search engine optimization. I'm in the works of possibly thinking about in 2024 creating my own podcast. I'm still in the works of organizing, trying to figure it out for myself. But in between time, if anybody wants to schedule a free consultation, they can go to onlineprivatepractice.com, or they can see any of my free videos on YouTube, and you can just go to YouTube and search up Online Private Practice.
Great. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to get to it easily. Well, Omar, thanks for being on the podcast, and hope we'll be talking again with you here soon. Well, a big thanks again to Omar for being on the podcast, and I hope that this has given you a lot to think about in putting up a Google business listing. I don't think we mentioned in here, but if you'll just simply go to google.com/business, that'll get you to the page where you sign in with your Google account and put all of your information into your business profile. You'd be surprised how much traffic that can bring you, particularly if you've got a website and getting those backlinks and that sort of thing to your website. So, so check it out, and also check out Omar's things. As I mentioned, we have links in the show notes and the show summary here for you to get to Omar's website. That's onlineprivatepractice.com, and I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation with you. Also, before we go, I'd love for you to check out the mental health wear shop. And you can find that by going to practiceofTherapy.com/mentalhealthwear. And check out the cool swag items and things that my friend Ashley has put together. And also be sure and visit our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes. And you can get to them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes. They're who I use in my practice, couldn't do without them. And they're constantly upgrading and doing new things. So many more features. It's just amazing how it seems like every week they're coming out with something new that's just so helpful in our practice. And they're really, in my mind, the number one platform or EHR for mental health providers. So be sure and check them out and use the coupon code or the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, to try them out for 2 months for free. So check them out. practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, I hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast, and also go over and check out all the other great podcasts that are in the Psychcraft Network, which this podcast is part of. And you can get to that by going to psychcraftnetwork.com. A lot of good friends and great folks over there, and other good podcasts to help you in your journey. So check it out. So take care, folks. Have a good rest of your week or weekend whenever you're listening to this, and be safe. Take care. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft Network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting sitecraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.